There's a level of mental and physical strength out there that is so profound, it almost seems, well, superhuman. It feels totally unattainable for most of us. But what if I told you there's a 400-year-old map that literally shows us how to get there?
So let's start with this idea. Just imagine for a second what it would feel like to have that kind of power, to face any situation, any crisis, without flinching, without breaking. Now, this isn't about being born a certain way or just getting lucky. It comes at a really high price, a price most people just aren't willing to pay.
And this is where you see the split, right? On one side, you've got this invincible ideal, someone who faces anything, who keeps going, who just acts. And on the other side, well, that's where most of us live, making excuses, giving up when things get tough, and constantly bargaining with ourselves just to avoid a little discomfort. So today, we're going to talk about how to cross that gap. To make this whole thing less abstract, let's talk about a guy named Lucas. He's an engineer, a husband, a father, a totally normal guy. But Lucas, he really embodies this modern weakness, a state that I think a lot of us might recognize in ourselves. So this was Lucas's life. He'd promised himself he was going to work out, but he never did. He'd started diet on Monday, and it was over by Wednesday. At his job, the second the pressure was on, he'd just freeze up. At home, he avoided any and all conflict. He was living completely on autopilot, just reacting to whatever life threw at him instead of actually taking control. Sound familiar at all? And this is what happens when that weakness goes unchecked. During a really important meeting, it all just came crashing down. Lucas had a full-blown panic attack. His heart was racing, the room was spinning, he literally had to run out. This was his rock bottom. It was a moment he had to face the truth. His mind was completely 100% untrained for the pressures of life. So, in his search for answers, Lucas didn't turn to some modern self-help guru. He found Miyamoto Musashi, a legendary Japanese swordsman from 400 years ago. And Musashi's path to strength, it was completely counterintuitive. It wasn't about adding more things to his life. It was all about taking things away. And this is where everything we think we know gets flipped on its head. We think we need more motivation, the right gear, the perfect time to start. Musashi taught the exact opposite. Real strength is being able to perform under any condition. And you build that by systematically getting rid of your dependencies, your excuses, and your need for everything to be just right. Okay, so how does this actually work? What does it look like in the real world? Lucas took Musashi's philosophy and he turned it into a real, concrete plan. These were his first steps toward building a truly unbreakable will. It all started with something simple: push-ups. No gym, no fancy equipment, no excuses. Just him and the floor. Then came the mental part, a concept called Heijoshin, the unshaken mind. When he felt that old anxiety bubbling up, he didn't fight it. He didn't run from it. He just observed it. He'd notice the tightness in his chest or his pulse speeding up and just watch it like a scientist without giving it a story. And finally, he committed to an extreme challenge, 100 push-ups a day, something that seemed impossible, just to prove to himself that his limits were all in his head. This combo of physical grit and mental practice was his new foundation. Now look, it's one thing to train when everything's comfortable. It's a whole other thing to see if that training holds up when a real storm hits. After 105 days of this relentless practice, Lucas's new strength was about to face the ultimate test. Yep, he was called into an emergency meeting and was told he was being laid off. The old Lucas would have absolutely lost it, his mind just spiraling into a million worst-case scenarios. And his colleagues who got the same news, they were crying, they were paralyzed with fear, but not Lucas. He was completely calm. So why was he so calm? Well, this quote from Musashi just nails it. The storm was raging all around him, but those 105 days of training, of push-ups, of observing his anxiety, of pushing past his limits, they had built deep roots. His mind was unshaken because he had deliberately, day after day, exposed himself to discomfort. And the result of that unshaken mind, it was incredible. While his former colleagues were still panicking and looking for work months later, Lucas took immediate, calm, decisive action. Within just 23 days, he had 3 job offers. By day 30, he was starting a new job with a 40% raise. This wasn't luck. This was the direct, tangible result of his training. But the journey doesn't stop there. The final stage, the highest level, is about integrating this practice so deeply that it's no longer something you do, it becomes who you are. This is where the most powerful principles really start to show up. In his new job, Lucas applied a principle called Hyoho, the strategy of emptiness. He didn't focus on being brilliant or trying to impress everyone. His goal was much simpler: to not lose. What does that mean? It means having no weaknesses, always being on time, always delivering exactly what he promised, staying out of the office drama. In a world that's full of inconsistency, his pure reliability made him invaluable. He got promoted in 3 months, and his boss told him, "Lucas, reliability trumps brilliance every single time."
And then there's the final, ultimate step, Sutemi. This is about abandoning the self. It means Lucas stopped tying his identity to his results. A successful project didn't make him a success. A mistake didn't make him a failure. He was simply the practice itself. This removes the ego, that desperate need for people to tell you you're doing a good job, and it removes the fear of losing what you've built, because hey, you can't lose who you are. And this is the profound place you end up. Discipline isn't a choice anymore. It's just integrated into you, like breathing. People would ask Lucas how he had so much discipline, and he realized the question didn't even make sense to him. He hadn't added discipline. He had simply eliminated all the parts of himself that wanted to give up. The sword and Zen become one.
So we end here with this really powerful question turned right back on us. The knowledge is out there, the potential exists inside our own bodies and minds right now. The difference isn't ability, it's the willingness to eliminate what's holding us back and to just practice until that practice becomes our identity. So the real question isn't, what are you going to do with this information? It's, why aren't you already doing it?